there we go. We're now recording. Hello, this is Barbara Tien and Kathy Stone here for our post-Ponga community recording of Kathy's Corner. It's a delight to have so many of you here joining. We're now ticking the numbers up above 12. This has me kind of excited, so I'll control myself with a thrill. Let me do a very brief introduction with respect to Ponga and post-Ponga. So as many, but maybe not all of you know, Ponga has been a software platform that we brought to market in 2021. I and some co-founders, 3 other co-founders, brought to market to have a new way to share our family stories in a digital form that dealt with some of the key challenges of doing this, including facial organization and keeping them private while creating a very rich environment to share and capture these stories. For a variety of reasons, it has been difficult to maintain that as a business, as a platform that we can take forward in the challenges of the marketplace as it is right now. But we have been overwhelmed with the enthusiasm for this in the community and really for the solution itself. So I want to keep that going by building this post-Ponga community that's just kind of me and a bunch of tools and obviously a bunch of friends. And the enthusiasm has just been overwhelming. You can learn more about us at postponga.com. And this event is one of the events that was just getting started under Ponga as Kathy's Corner, where Kathy, who had been a member from our very earliest days in 2021, has had decades of experience as a professional photo organizer and realized that she had a very special set of skills that others could really benefit from in this community, specifically as she now brings her professional photo organizing skills to the challenge of organizing her own photos. So we envisioned this program to be a way of almost like a mastermind session that we can all step along the same kind of process, learn from each other, and keep each other going. So Kathy has written a fabulous blog post called 8 Steps from Tubs to Tails or something to that effect. It was too long. I can't remember. And that walks through this structure. And now with these programs, we're kind of walking through that structure to do it. Now, joining me today also as a special guest here at the top of the program is Rob Kershaw from Story Center. Those of you who followed us at Ponga at Roots Tech 2023 will recognize his name. Rob was a speaker for us during one of our programs, and I want to have him say just a little bit about why he's taken the time to pay attention to all of this and how he may be helping me with some of the programs coming on. Go ahead, Rob.
Well, I'm welcoming myself to this very special space, and I'm really excited. Sad because I was a latecomer to Ponga, and it was a colleague of mine's mother was sharing a sort of hospice care or something with Barbara's mother. It's just one of those circumstances where a person meets a person and said, you should talk to this person. So I came late to Ponga and super excited. As soon as I saw this platform, how you can embed stories and how you can not just gather stories, that I just excited and jumped on the wagon as quick as I could. And of course, I couldn't save it. I'm sorry. But I'm super excited to continue working with Barbara and and Kathy and others in making sure that something rich is built out of it. So I work for Story Center, and what we do is help people tell stories through their own photographs and video clips and a written piece of text to make short little films about lived experiences. And many people tell stories about loved ones in their lives, their own lives, their family histories and such. So storycenter.org is where I reside in the virtual space, and I teach online workshops. But I'm really excited to sort of work with Barbara and whoever in this post-Ponga world to kind of think through how my skills and the experiences with Story Center can contribute to this community right here, and what I can do to help people tell stories using their photographs of their family histories. Does that sound good? Barbara,
That's brilliant,
okay.
Rob. That's brilliant, Rob. Thank you. And it's
course.
been, we have these conversations where we practically finish each other's sentences, and it's just been such a delight. I had the opportunity to join one of their public workshops, thanks to Rob, and just found it mind blowing. The experience and discipline of the storytelling process coming through what we're focused on, so much of the technology bits. I think it's going to be a wonderful synergy going forward. So thank you so much for joining us. And I will follow up this program today with an email including a whole bunch of wonderful resources that Kathy has planned, a recording to this program, and a little bit about the upcoming programs we have, plus some new resources that we've added to Post Ponga. So with that, did we have any technical questions, things like that? I think, go ahead.
Oh, just that I will probably have to jump off a little early. So I already told Barbara, and I think Kathy knows that I'm here to say hello. I'm going to listen as long as I can, and then I have to scoot away. But I'll be back in some form with this community. I'm sure of it. Okay.
Yay. Thank you so much.
See you, Rob. Thank you. The one thing I wrote down, and again, this is based on Kathy's memory, which comes and goes. Is this our first time using this platform?
No, actually, we did last time.
And Linda's nodding yes. I feel
because
like,
I think it might be new for some of you. So that's a good point.
Yeah, just to give a little, because some people may not be familiar with
sure.
this platform.
So maybe I should
give them a little tour. Where's the chat?
Yeah. Thank you. So this is Google's answer to Zoom. The first key tip I would suggest, because I've stepped in it a few times, is it can be very useful to run Google Meet in its own, well, you will be running it in its own tab, but pull the tab out from the rest of your other tabs. So it's an independent tab, because you're going to click on something else and then say, whoa, where did it go? It happens every time. So just pull it out and make it its own window. Life will just get easier. Second, the controls down at the bottom here of your Chrome window and the Google chat window are pretty much what you would expect if you've been using Zoom. So you have mute, you have video on, closed captioning is kind of fun. You can add little messages and chat. Thank you, Marty. Has already found the chat button. Many people didn't know that Google Meet does in fact have chat, which it certainly does. And just have a good time. Don't get too excited out there. And as I said, I'm recording all of this, which is a feature, by the way, that is available on accounts that have, added memory, added storage, that sort of thing, which is why I have it. And I will be sharing that simply as a link, which is kind of nifty. So any of those kinds of logistic questions? Cool. All righty. And we'll have, Kathy, I'll let you drive with respect to time on how you're going to cover things and time available for conversation and what you're looking for there.
Okay. We'll get going. So Barbara, saw somebody waving in the background out of the bushes on Rob's screen. Very much less distracting from the first time we tried to do Kathy's Corner, though, I must say that. We just won't go there. So happy to be back. Good to see you, those of you who are returning, and welcome to all the people who are new, especially Anna and Ann. Thank you for joining us from points where it's much later at night than it is here on the west. Well, I'm not on the west coast. I'm kind of on the other side of the mountains, but still sort of earlier for us in the afternoon. So I want to just first off start with what we talked about last time. I believe the first time we didn't get a whole lot covered. So I think last time we started to talk about those 8 steps. And those are flexible steps. They're a guideline. I've seen them as 5 steps. You could divide them into 10, but at some point you just pick a number and go with it, and you cover the main points. We talked about the first step, which was gathering. And this is as we experience this new one, I'm going to see if there's a way to turn off popping up chats. So if you are looking for the chat, it's on the bottom right, and it looks like a little speech bubble. It's not like Zoom where it's in the middle or anything, but we talked about those 8 steps, and I think we went over them, and then we started talking about the part that's sort of part of the planning. And the first step was gathering. And we kind of skimmed over that a little bit. We said, the obvious, you have to get all your stuff together. And then we talked about planning and making a plan of how you're going to get your project done. And one thing I wanted to do, first I wanted to hear from everyone in the group. Did anyone get their goal written? We're going to start easy. We're going to start with the first part, which was to come up with your goal. Did anybody get a goal, as opposed to a hockey goal? Did anyone set a goal? And if so, do you mind sharing it with us? You can even put it in the chat if you want. Anna's coming from the future. Wow. And we aren't going to call you out if you didn't set a goal, but something to think about. So that's what we talked about. And if you didn't get one set yet, do you have questions? Are you having trouble with it? Like, are you having trouble thinking up the goal for your whole photo organizing project?
I wasn't here for the last meeting, but I will tell you, sorry, this is Tammy speaking. But I have been starting to digitize. I didn't think of it as setting a goal, so I didn't answer. But what I did was I kind of broke it down into the pictures from my mom's, my mom's pictures, so that I have that. The next one will be a group of pictures from my father. And so I'm kind of grouping it in pictures that the different parts of the family have had. I don't know if that counts towards your goal, but
well, I think it does, because ultimately you're obviously have a goal of digitizing all those photos. And that's what I was going to say, because I didn't expect, I was hoping there'd be somebody that'd come up with a real perfect goal that then I could, take it. So part of this was also, I was actually going to make that as a point that, like, obviously the goal, I wrote one down, is I want to preserve and share my family history. That's my big, broad pie in the, hopefully not a pie in the sky goal, but that's the big, broad goal. But it doesn't really help me get going very much. So
on that, then, I guess my goal is to get our family's pictures digitized, since I'm in an area where we have wildfires all the time and earthquakes and now flooding and you name it. So I'm trying to get everything I can digitized so that I have some other form. So
that's another perfect goal. A lot of when I first started my business, we had just experienced severe flooding in southern Alberta. Severe, like where people's houses filled up to the second floor, like not just a little bit of water in the basement. And so many people lost photos, and helping people that became a very powerful motivator for people, and nothing wrong with that. Like, that's one of the best reasons for doing this as well, is to make sure those things are safe from, if you're in, and I don't know that any of us live in an area that doesn't have floods, fires, hurricanes, tornadoes. Anna, nothing, no natural disaster.
No.
I'm moving there, darn it. So
no.
So it's a very common reason to want to digitize them. So, and I was going to mention that if you're going to you might need to break your goal down and do it exactly what Tammy said was, and I'd made break it into parts of the family. So I've got my mom's side of the family, my dad, actually, I have a whole bunch of families. My dad's side of the family. Then I'm married, so I have my husband's family and all those sides. So I don't want to cover them, muck them all together, because that would just not help any. That's part of the first start of sorting out the mess. And then I've got my own kids and family, like our current life. So I've kind of figured out dividing it into that isn't too bad. I'm in the south of Calgary, Rob. I think you asked me that in the chat where I was. And I'm in the south of Calgary where there was, I'm not that far from High River.
So you would have had the Elbow River probably flooding you.
Yeah, I was very lucky because I live right in the very south, and I live up on a very high point, right? I'm just like blocks from the banks of the river. So it flooded the whole lower flats, but we always joke that if it floods where we are, because we're in big trouble because we're fairly high up. So
sorry to distract you, but when you said Alberta, I was like, that's my second home. So
well, that's another thing in common. So
exactly.
Figuring out the other thing we talked about last week was planning time in your calendar. Once you get your plan and like you figured out how you're breaking it all down, but to set aside time in your calendar when you're going to work on your photos, because if you have a good plan, life is going to always get in the way and it's never going to get done, which is partly what I'm doing here on having Kathy's Corner in Post-Ponga as well, is that I've decided that I need to organize my own photos because they're not organized. And so I'm setting aside time on my calendar amongst all the other things I have to do to actually work on my photos. Part of that, also, I think we gave you the Google Doc or access to it, and Barb will probably share it again and could share the link with you, but it was just a document that is a sort of a modification of what I've used with clients organizing their photo collections just to keep track of everything. And it has like I recommended numbering boxes. I always did that as a professional. I've not done that as a person. So that's first on my list. Now I've just thought, you know what, Kath, you need to number all those boxes because you really have a lot. Keeping track of the location of where the box is. That's part of the sheet, the Google sheet too. See, I moved out. I can't find my sheet now. Hang on. Nope, I don't know where it went, but Barb will find it. But there's fields in there then to keep track of your progress as you go. And you can actually you could arrange your Google sheet there. Barbara put it in the chat for us. You could arrange that sheet and it's a spreadsheet. So mine, I will download and use in Excel, which is a program I use. You can keep using it as a Google Doc. Mac, I'm sure has a spreadsheet with another name too. So you could use it in whatever program that you want, but it also follows through, okay, so you can tell, okay, so box number 1 is the farm years from the Hodgson family. So that box has been digitized. There was a field there. Barb and I were at one point going to go, wah, 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 every time we mentioned the loss of Ponga. So there was a field on your spreadsheet to keep track of whether it was in Ponga, and the farm years were digitized and they were in Ponga, and they were in the process of all the stories being written. So there were columns just to keep track of where everything is, because it's surprising as you get working and you have a number of different things on the go, how quickly you lose track of where things are and lose track of where, and again, end up with, you've digitized everything and now you have both a digital and a physical mess of all your stuff. So that's, I think, the importance of planning and then following through with those steps and keeping track of it. I know that's kind of boring. It's not as exciting as the stories and reminiscing through the photos, but it helps you in the long run. When Barbara and Cameron and I talked about setting up Kathy's Corner, it was an offshoot of a webinar I did quite a while ago. And we talked about it being a place where we could build a community with people who come with a bunch of questions, but also based on, I think the first one, we described it as following a photo organizer's journey to organize their own photos. So I figure it's always my duty to own up to what I've done since the last call and where I'm at. So this is now the self-confessional time of what I've done. So what I've discovered as I've been trying to work through some stuff is that I had a lot of stuff in a lot of different places. Apparently at several times I started to organize my stuff all along the way. It was probably like, oh, I should get, this, I should get on this, I should get this stuff done. And so now I'm busy digitizing, and some stuff is very well organized. At some point, I sorted and labeled all my negatives, and they are all in, which is what I'm digitizing now. This is only for like the 27 years, well, not 27 years, but the time from 96 when my kids were born until we went digital. So it's still quite a few years, but so that for me is a good basis to start on that chunk of history, because it's actually, it's organized. What I've discovered though is, and I thought, because I had also these boxes that matched the dates on the negatives. The negative boxes are dated, like the one I'm looking at right now is July of 2000 to June of 2002. So that's, that's what fit in the box. So, and then there's more boxes that go before and after. And I also had boxes of prints that were labeled, which I very quickly discovered as I was looking through the prints that we had a lot of duplicates back in the day, like there, because you could get an extra set of photos for like 25 cents. And so part of mine immediate, easy thing to do to get rid of stuff, because I'll probably talk about that next time, Barbara. We'll have an in-depth discussion about what you and I were talking about yesterday about the decluttering versus legacy and photos and things. But if you want an easy thing to get rid of, work on those years when you could order duplicates and triplicates, or family people kept sending you. People sent me my own wedding photos back when they cleaned their house out. Like I open up and here's these pictures of your wedding. Thought you might like them, and I'm like, actually, no, I don't really like. I got lots of pictures of my own wedding. I don't, and some of them are ones that I probably sent them. So it's sort of like there's the easy pickings for you to start with, like to get rid of stuff, get rid of that. So I'm thinking I'm going along really good here, and I'm digitizing I used to do all my own scanning, and I'm not physically able to, and plus I hate it. I don't like scanning, so just doesn't a thing that rote tasks are not how Kathy's brain works, and I'm bad at it because I forget, like anything where repetitious tasks, I forget what I'm doing because I think of something else, and then I'm like, oh, did I scan that pile, or where did I put those? So and I'm not going to scan my own stuff anymore. And so I've been involved with a company called Forever for a long time, probably forever, but forever since they started, which was about 10 years ago. And they started off as just a storage company, and now they have all sorts of stuff, but they offer digitization. And I finally got up the nerve, because one of the things that bothered me the most about the digitization was I had to send my stuff from Calgary, Canada, all the way to Green Bay, Wisconsin. And that terrified me. And I will be perfectly honest, the first few batches I did, I sent the prints because I knew I had the negatives. So now I have poor, or not as good quality of reproductions or scans, but fortunately then I got brave, and now I'm sending them all my negatives. And so what occurred to me as the stuff was coming back is I got to get rid of some, so I'm digitizing all that. So I sent off another box last week, and I've now got, the box I sent off last week was 2002. So I've now got 96, 97, 98, 99, 2000, 2001, all digitized. And so when they're digitized, then they all just get slapped into my Forever. They scan them and they load them all into my Forever account. And they're loaded by Forever box number with the code that I sent in. I'm not going to bore you with all those details. So now I have this, but as we all know, scans don't have the right date on them. So anything that tries to sort these now, it's going to sort, they're all, if I go sort by date, I've got like, all bunch of different months of photos. So that's a step there. So I've got now a box number, the box that I'm working on right now, the date of what that box is, and that it's been digitized. And now the step is to organize the digital stuff. So that's sort of what I've been up to. I also discovered, because I was looking for, I am a scrapbooker. I'm making digital albums for my babies who are 27. And I was working on a trip we took in the beginning of 1999. You could see, I'm trying to make you all feel better here. Like we're telling you, you could be a little bit behind. And we took a trip to Sanibel Island, which I don't know if any of you have been there. Beautiful part of Florida. We spent a month there and then went to Pennsylvania to visit my husband's family. And we did stuff with the kids. And as a scrapbooker, we like to save tickets and memorabilia and stuff. And then I digitize it, put in the albums, and I can let it go. So I thought, got to be tickets and stuff somewhere. So there's a box up you see this nice big cupboard behind me. The top half of it is full of my own personal stuff. And I thought, well, the memorabilia has to be. And so I see a box that's got the date I'm working on. I went, oh, that's got to be where it is. So I got my husband to lug this great big box down, and I look in it and I'm like, oh. At some point, I apparently decided for this time period I'm working on right now, when the boys started preschool, I have twins, that I would I'm making them their own books, because I feel like there's a lot of things twins just have to share all the time. And so I thought that, they probably have their own, it would be kind of nice to have your own baby book, even though a lot of the pictures are the same. So here in this box, apparently I decided sometime long ago that I would sort the years, all the photos into Bob's side and Mike's side of these years that I just had in another box somewhere else that I thought I'd already moved. So we're on like 6, 7 copies now. Who knows how many. So that box has now gone on my list as to be basically, I need, and luckily the stuff's digitized now. I can just look at, just sit there with them, go on the computer, got it, and put them in the big pile to shred. I'll throw this in just as a tip. Photos are not recyclable, sadly. They've full because of the chemicals that are used in the developing process. So all you can do is try and find some way to reuse them. Apparently, mailing them to people who are if you find some weddings, send them back to the bride and groom, apparently is one way you can avoid trying to throw photos out. But I'm shredding mine. In this day and age, I don't want somebody to find them and put them all in the store as photos that got thrown away or anything. So it's up to you, but you can't. And you can make all sorts of crafts with old photos if that's what you like to do, and you have the time and you're not still trying to sort your photos out. But unfortunately, they're garbage. So all that 25 cents down the drain, you don't even want to worry about that. But so that's sort of where I'm at. So what I'm going forward, I need to do some work on gathering, because stuff has migrated all over my house in the time in 27 years that we've lived here. So I thought we'd backtrack a little bit from what we did last time and talk a bit about gathering, because it hit me that there's a lot of different things, and we use the word photos as a catch-all for everything that we're trying to use to tell our stories. And really it's just a tiny bit of it. So coming up, you'll have a link to this soon. That's how you like that for a commitment. Soon, I'm working on it, but we will get it shortly. A link to what kind of things you might be looking at gathering. The purpose of it is to maybe give a trigger, go, oh, right, I need to find that, as opposed to saying you have to use, if you don't want this stuff in your family legacy, you don't have to do it. It's not like, oh man, I don't want to put a more weight on you, but it's just to go, oh, right, I get that. And it gives you, so it's going to be another little checklist where you can write stuff down, and it's got a column for the item, the location, and the notes. I may actually throw it into a Google sheet, Barb, because then it's easier to add columns to to suit your use. So that actually,
if you add it to the same sheet, everybody that already has the link would get it too.
There you go. Barbara,
but I'm also including these links in the outbound email to everybody.
Yes. So that's what I'll do. I'll actually add it as another tab onto that Google sheet. So some of the things I thought, we've talked about photos. So we've talked about negatives. You have slides. I'm going to look at my list just so I don't forget anything. You may find somewhere undeveloped film. And believe it or not, there are places to get your undeveloped film developed, even so. You may find APS film canisters. I think APS is the right word. I just wrote it down. So they're going to look like an undeveloped film, but they contain a solid roll of negatives. And you can get those converted and digitized. I think it's really not a do-it-yourself project, because you have to crack open the case and the risk of damage. And I'll throw on that sheet, Barbara, could you make a note that I promised this? A little key, there's a little guide on the canister so you can tell if it's never been used. You're probably going to throw in the garbage because you probably don't have that camera anymore. If it's been developed and processed, so there might be prints, it's got a little coating on it. So I'll throw that on just for your information. But those, I've had clients give me, a whole box load of those that we needed to digitize. The tough part about them as opposed to a strip negative, you can't look at them and see if you already have the photo. Like, you really have no way to view them until they're processed. So disposable cameras, those kicking around. You're also going to look for things like, CD. Barb just put in CDs. Costco put stuff on CDs. I'm going to date myself again here and say I have photo floppy disks. well, 3.5-inch flop. I don't have any 5.5-inch floppies with photos because they'd have like about one photo. Rob's, I hear Rob's story in a minute because cut the bottom half of it off. But so CDs, DVDs, you want to gather all those together. So you got to think beyond just print stuff too. Magazines, newspapers, documents, framed photos. And I brought this along to show you. So I didn't know my grandparents. This is my grandparents on my dad's side, and I never knew them. Oh, is somebody, I can hear a lot of chatting in the background. Somebody themselves. So this is a photo of my grandparents that I didn't know growing up. So my aunt gave me this photo in the frame. It's in one of those little frames. It's for instamatic size print. It's not a young frame, it's an old frame. And so it's been sitting on my dresser, and I thought, I should digitize that photo. So I took the frame apart to pull it out and scan the photo for something I was doing. And lo and behold, inside the frame is a picture of my grandmother. I sent this picture to my aunt and my cousins, and none of them had ever seen it before. But at some point, somebody tucked grandma's photo in, and it's quite possible my aunt got this from one of her brothers or sisters. So you look in the frames, and I know my mom did that with my kids' school pictures. She wouldn't buy a new frame. She'd shove the pictures in the back of the frame. So you'll open up a frame and you'll go, oh, great, there's 10 pictures in here. I'm not going to try and put that back together because it's old and bent. But so framed photos, and scrapbooks, photo albums, or those are actually really good to find because photo albums usually have some semblance of order to them. I always say, if you're going to start somewhere, that's a good place to start because usually people didn't, not always, some people might have, but people didn't normally just randomly put stuff in an album. There was usually some structure to it. Family Bibles for two reasons. One, you may want to have the Bible photographed. We have found family histories in the front of the Bible, like written right in the Bible. And you might find photos tucked away in the Bible. So something else to look for, cookbooks. Yeah, as Rob said, make sure you check the backs of photos because they may have writing on them. Yearbooks, my client had yearbooks, and what we did was her early elementary ones, we scanned the whole thing because it's just so cool. Like, this is back from the 50s. But the later ones, because I don't know, I grew up I went to a small school because my high school yearbook is about that thick. Her college ones from like Michigan Tech are like 3 inches thick, and it's like, I don't think we need to scan all that. So we just scanned the pages that had her on it. We went through and found her and anything else like the club she was involved in and just narrowed that down. But yearbooks, another place of photos. Cookbooks, again, for a couple of reasons. You can find photos in them. And also, you may want to preserve the recipes. And I know in some of my cookbook I found in one client, they had written notes beside the recipes like, yeah, this is really good. This is a favorite. This was horrible. Don't make it ever again. Like, it's the story. The story of it, the personality comes out in the cookbooks. And that's also if you're looking for a gift to give to family. Cookbooks with family favorite recipes in it, or digital albums rather, with family favorites is a good one. You're going to look for all the old video recordings, video which could be VHS, Super 8, like all those different medias we had with our digital camera or film cameras, movie cameras. You could have rolls of actual film from the old reel-to-reel film. That's not the right word for it. I'm struggling for the word, but you know what I mean. The metal film canisters with the film from the family vacation in it. And that to me is one of the things that's priceless to have digitized, like to find those, because you get the people talking. I digitized a tape and it was my boy's 4th birthday party. And we were filming like they were doing their cake or something, and kids were all eating. And in this, off to the side in the background, probably standing right by the camera, were my mom and my aunt discussing whether or not they were going to eat cake, have a piece of cake. And they were both gone then. Not long when I digitized it, my aunt hadn't been gone that long. And it was priceless because in that little 5-second clip, it was them. It was the people that I remember. It was something that a photo can't even begin to touch for just like so. That's another one you want to look for those things. And again, we'll talk about digitizing all this stuff down the road. There's lots of ways to do that. Artwork, if you've got, or some people have original artwork or a picture that's important because you bought it when you took your first family vacation. Want to get that scanned and digitized. This is my big one. Apparently somebody, their mother, I guess, saved all of their school artwork and have like big bins of it. So it's not really that easy to store. So that's something you may want to digitize. And you can actually, if you're set it all as a separate album, as opposed to trying to figure out when they did it, because that if you weren't clever enough to write the dates on the back at the time, like it's like, okay, well, he could write then, so that was probably, yeah, it's, but that's another thing that that's part of the story and part of the history. There's a box I know in my basement that my mom saved that's my artwork from kindergarten. And so I might have to just leave that, scan it and then leave it there for my kids to have to fight with throwing it away. But trophies and awards, certificates, documents, all those things that tell part of the story. And then we get to, I know this is going to be one of Marty's favorites, family heirlooms and objects that have memories attached to them. And they don't necessarily need to be heirlooms. And some of those things, as I'm working through, because I was jumping around a bit, I was preparing a page to put up in Ponga of my grandfather in World War I. I have only one picture, but I have all of his service documents and his medals. And so I was preparing this page that was going to then link up to all the different parts of it. And but that led me to think of, there's other things that I need to get of memorabilia and things that belong with that story that help tell his story in World War I. So those kind of things, the medals in there also is his hat, like a hat, which kind of think it might be the Second World War. It doesn't look like a hat that a guy in the British Navy would have worn. It looks more like the Veterans Guard guy was in the Canadian military. I've just got to do a little research, but that was in this frame. So that was all in a frame that I got presented to me just about a month ago. Other objects with memories, and they may not be valuable objects, but things that tell an important story are things that you can photograph and include with the story. And that's what my friend Marty is all about, is telling stories with objects. And it's fascinating and gets to the heart of things. So think about that too. We have an old broken plate hanging over on a plate hanger in our kitchen. And I either wrote the blog or it was a good blog idea. I can't remember which. Go ahead and take it if you want. I was going to call it the broken plate, because if you look at it, you go, why are you keeping this plate? It's broken. But it was my father-in-law's. My father-in-law died when my husband was 3. It was his plate when he was a baby. And it looks like, why are you keeping this with all these chips out of it? But with the story, it's one of the few things that he has of Mark, because he doesn't really have very many memories. So that's when you're gathering all this stuff up, that's another thing that's important. Go ahead, Barb.
I think the broken plate, by the way, that is a great topic for a blog post, because in essence, it essentially says what looks to you like a broken plate isn't just a broken plate, and here's why. That's the story. But the very fact that it looks like a damaged object that's irrelevant and stupid to have been hoarded and kept is why it needs the story. And then you can take that core idea and extrapolate to that larger point of your own photos without your stories are just like somebody's found photos in a thrift store. Yep. And that's where those connections all come together. And I think, I get anxiety a little bit with, oh my God, I haven't done enough. Everything is everywhere. And I'm melting. How do you manage that overwhelmed feeling?
Well, I think it's little steps at a time. And just, I think that's the part of figuring out, okay, because I writing it down so you remember, like I know my grandmother was given a pin, it's a little rifle brooch. She was given that when my uncle, he'd be my great uncle. My great uncle was killed in the First World War at Gallipoli. So I don't have the brooch, but I think I know who has it. So I just want a picture of it to add because it's part of the story. I've got the information. Again, it was in my Ponga, but I got it out now. That about Gallipoli and the battle that he fought in, and his name's on the war memorial there that they put up at some point. But that rifle pin would be the connection between my great-grandmother losing her son, my grandmother losing her brother. The story, it gives more of a story to illustrate, more of an illustration to that story than here's a picture of, Uncle Dan, or just writing down, Uncle Dan was in the war and fought in Gallipoli.
Right. I mean, I think this is a fundamental of digital storytelling, because when you are dealing with a photo that you can get into, you can point into, you can go into those pixels, you can start to do things like notice a pin that appears, cameo that appears in multiple articles of clothing over different people over periods of time, or a pin that is an indication of a war, reference or whatever else. That's lovely, really lovely.
Yeah. So I think that's part of dealing with the whole overwhelm is to and again, you don't have to find everything, and you probably won't, because you're going to get going and somebody's going to send you more pictures, or somebody's going to, oh, I've got this box. They find out that you're doing this, and then all of a sudden you become the person who should do this, and you get more boxes from family and everything else. So it's not a perfection thing where I can't start until I have everything. But it's more and for me, I need to have stuff, well, as I have discovered in this last week, that what I was doing, this bit of disorganization I have, isn't working for me. And I think that's the key. If you've got a method that's working for you, you don't have to change. You don't have to do this. This is the point of this is help customize, giving you tips that photo organizers use, but do what works for you. Like this isn't this, you must do this, step 1, step 2. Depends on how you think. I've discovered I apparently need a little more organization in life because I'm not, or else a bunch of stuff's not getting done, and I can't keep track of it. Places to look, and then we're going to talk. Digital stuff, we could probably spend a whole day on trying to find digital stuff, but you're going to look for USB keys, external hard drives, 100 different places on your computer. That's the danger, is we can have more and more storage. Yes, you can have stuff in more and more places to find. There's devices that you can plug in and collect everything with. You can also, I think, both in Windows, and I know for sure in Windows, I can go in and search JPEG and it'll find all my pictures. I don't actually need to spend money on a device, because really the device is going to collect every JPEG on your computer, including your screenshots, the food you ate, the shoes, the meme you saved. So I'm not sure that's helpful. So, and I'm pretty sure if you go into Finder, you can search the same thing. So definitely. I wouldn't necessarily search, like I wouldn't go into my whole computer, like say, okay, search C drive for JPEGs. I don't think that would be very helpful. It would take an hour to find them all, but go in little blocks of where there might be pictures, because we and that way you also get rid of duplicates there, because you don't need, you want to have, I don't know if we talked about the whole idea of having a photo hub yet. I don't think we did, but you want to try and get everything in one place, and then you can back that up, as opposed to having pieces of all this everywhere. And that's what I found with the stuff I've got. The digitized stuff is up in forever right now, but then there's stuff that's on my hard drive that I digitized at myself when I was doing scanning. It's just trying to get everything together. I found a list that from a good friend of mine, Andy Willis, who's another professional photo organizer at I was going to say Good Times, but it's Good Life Photo Organizing. Not Good Times, but we have Good Times too. And she had made a list a long time ago of where you might find the stuff you're looking for. And I got a kick out of it, because I thought, well, this is great. Relatives' homes on the fridge. Look, and I just realized that my client, where I work at the house full of pictures, I haven't been there for like 2 years. There were pictures stuck on the fridge that we didn't digitize yet. And even though nobody lives in the house. So bye, Rob. Nice to see you. Dressers, drawers everywhere could have photos in them. Closets, under beds, couches, under furniture. A friend of mine who is she's a photo organizer, but also organizes houses. Like, she's a home organizer. So she was living up in Edmonton, and this family hired her. The mother, the matriarch of the family, had passed away. Dad was already gone. And so they were having their meeting, and she said she stuck her hand like sort of between the couch cushions just to move around, and pulled out a picture. So like stuck right in the couch. The weird part about it is it was a picture of my kids. And she was actually at the home of one of my very good friends from high school. And I knew that Melita had passed away, but she found it was my Christmas card that I continued to send Christmas cards to my friend's mom until she passed. And so, like, in the couch, found the picture, and somebody she knew. Like, it's a small world. In the nightstand, jewelry boxes, memory boxes, hope chests, safety deposits boxes or safes. In the garage, unpacked moving boxes. Guilty. So I've only been here 27 years. Like, you expect me to unpack them all at once, but places where that you might just want to check out. Like, I know there's pictures in one of these boxes that's my childhood from a long time ago in the garage. That's got, like, I think I looked in there one that my pet rock is in there, and a couple baseball trophies and stuff, and so all those things. Email, people probably emailed you photos. That's another, getting the pictures out of email. So many people keep putting pictures on Facebook. I will say this thing. Social media is not a storage place for photos. It is a sharing place. So don't only have your photos on social media. That's my tip of the day. But that's a good place to get photos off of. They're going to be compressed and tiny. You're not going to be able to print them, but you probably could include them in an archive if they're the only pictures. What else? Phones. Old phones are probably a treasure trove of photos too. So, and if you've used other photo organizing apps, your photos might be stored in there. So that, in a nutshell, is my ideas of where you can find stuff and the type of stuff you might want to include. Does that mean you need to go tonight and start digging through your basement and finding everything? No, but if you start, even if you think about it, like I'm writing on my list now that I know there's those 2 boxes in the basement that aren't with everything else that are, and I know I've just wrote there, I got a Post-it note. Barb and I love Post-it notes too, written on there of what's in it. So I now know it's got a couple destroyed traditional albums that my mom made with white glue. We didn't know then in the 60s that I need to have rescanned and rebuild them. And so I know what they are. So I'm writing them on my list now, as opposed to just ignoring them to have them sit in the basement. And will I find more? Quite possibly. And people keep, like I say, I keep inheriting more stuff. But if you get a list to start with, then when you're breaking down that big, huge goal of trying to digitize all your photos to preserve that, you got a guide to work by.
So that's a wonderful way to wrap a package around what is really Kathy's first step. Gather your photos. And remember, when she talked about having a goal at the beginning, we're still going to get to planning. But when you have a goal and you know what the scope of the challenge is, you could be looking at the entire world of everything. Or in my case, I realized what my goal is. Hadn't even articulated it. The tubs of photos of my mom's. So I inherited this collection. So the nature of the collection wraps around it. So her pictures of my brother will be very different from my pictures of my brother because, of course, he's much older than I am. And, looking at ways to wrap that around. I really appreciate that articulation. And as we said, you're going to be, scurrying through this list. We'll have this recorded version of it, but you'll be articulating that, which we can attach as another tab to the spreadsheet. The link to the spreadsheet's here, but it will also include it in the follow-up from this email.
And it will appear in the next day or so. If I do it as I called Barb beforehand, I was going to have it for you today and said, apparently I've forgotten how to, I haven't typed a Word document in ages, and I usually do Word and convert to PDF. And I'm like, we're getting closer to the time, and I can't format. I want to be nice, but if I'm doing it in Google Docs, it'll be no breeze. I know how to. That's what I'm usually working with.
We just make it another tab of the same doc, then it always goes with it.
Yeah, and then it's all together in one place. That's a brilliant idea. We're figuring this out as we go, if you haven't noticed. So now, go ahead, Barb.
No, when you're done, I want to come back before we finish and wrap up a little bit with what we've done for the post-Ponga little tools we've got coming. So go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, I'm throwing the floor open, and I want to hear your stories and what you're working on, and what obstacles have you had? Or even better, what successes have you had? What have you found that excites you? Desmond,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh,
do I have to? I have a thing that says
unmute.
I got it. I found it.
Okay, perfect.
I'm just really curious. Once you send off your box of negatives or photos, and it comes back as a digital folder with hundreds of items with 20 number names, then do you go through one by one and rename them? And then there are so many choices. Do you put the name of one person, the names of multiple people in the picture, the location the picture was taken, the date, the event? Like, I cannot conceive of how to categorize this stuff if I were to do that.
Do you have an answer, Anna? Or another question?
Yes. To tie back to what you said, that you have to work with what works for you. And I found that how I work when it's my own photos and the family research is different from in the Heritage Association, where we have so many more photos, and where everyone in the whole mining community seem to have had the same photos. Mm-hmm. So we can have 10, 15 scans of the same photo. But what we try to do is that we scan photos from one person at a time. So you can't have a name that is too long with, names of all the people on, because it might be 30 people in the picture that are identified, all of them as well, sometimes. So you put down then, we choose to take, so we found these photos from someone that, named Albin Lind. Then we put AL, and then we number each photo that we scan in. So it's from 01 to, I think it was 384 or something like that. And then we have, just like in Notepad, we take notes and we put AL 01, and then we write down what's in there. Personally, me and my cousin, in our own one, we have gone even further. We have a document on the side, an Excel sheet that ties into the numbers we've given it. And then in the Excel document, we have written down roughly when the photo is taken, who's in the photo, where it was taken, if you knew who took the photo. So how you do that all depends on how many photos you have, what's the purpose of saving the photos. But the more information you can save for the future, mm-hmm. the easier the work will be for other people 50 years down the line when they find all this.
And I think with, I'll speak directly to the stuff that's coming back from forever. So because my negatives are organized by month and year. So that's how I sent them. I labeled, and my digital folders that come back have the numbered code because everything has a barcode to track it. But those folders that have come back have what titles I wrote on them. And so I'm going by, I go year, 4-digit year, 2-digit month, 2-digit day. That's like different countries reverse month and day around. It's important you be consistent. It doesn't matter if you do it my way but don't flip that around because it gets confusing. I will be adding all the information, like all that Anna has mentioned, into the description field of my photos. I can do that in Forever. I use another program called Historian that's PC only, unfortunately, that I can add, which is basically I have a tell a story box. And that's what I write that information in. I haven't decided yet. What we do with clients is we change all the dates on scans from the scan date to the actual date. That's a lot of work. So I haven't yet decided if I'm going to just be happy to have the date in the name of the photo. And I don't try to capture all that information in the file name because it would take so long. So I put all that information, like, so for example, I'll talk the Sanibel Islands. So what they say is 1999, it was January 01, and I'm just put, I put 05 for all of them because it's 1999. I don't remember what day we did what. So they're just all going to have that date, but I got you in the right month. Like we're pretty accurate time frame. And then in the description, I'm going to write the description of whatever we were doing that day.
Can I pop up a level here to this range? I mean, Desmond, it's great to have you coming into this community of people with a lot of shared perspective, because you are asking some of the really fundamental questions.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a range of, as Anna puts it, of purpose. What are you trying to accomplish? She's working on a project with a whole community of people, and they have a very specific set of goals they're trying to accomplish. I'm sloppy and lazy, but I want to take care of the originals and make sure nothing bad happens as soon as possible. So it's sort of in that range. And then there's fundamental technologies that you can use to do that. In the old days, you're happy to get it to digital, and you want to stuff everything into the metadata of that digital file. And there's a whole lot of arguments about how much metadata, where and how. Leaving that separate, I'll take the agnostic, it's great if it's there argument. But then we have new technologies that are actually looking at the image itself. And that's where we call facial organization, as opposed to recognition, but matching faces to names. Somewhere you're putting names to faces, and then you do a matching algorithm to be able to put those together in an orderly way, organize them. And it gets complicated. So, in fact, we've started to take, as coming out of Ponga, I broke down in a new blog post, hint, hint, 5 elements to really this digital storytelling problem. So I tried to look higher than just Ponga and look at that larger challenge. What is the real problem we're trying to solve? And that covers things like privacy and archiving, in addition to organized by faces, because that really is important when you're talking about family. But so is context and the storytelling. Why was it important? Why does a broken plate matter? And try to put all of those kinds of things together. And no, we're not covering that in just one little talk about scanning. But that one little step of scanning is separating the physical artifact into a digital artifact. And it is such a risk to lose the context in that moment. So it's a really good question as to how you do it.
And again, I go back to what I said before. It's what makes sense to you. I will probably, and I'm going to use a couple of different approaches. I will probably, with the old photos, I will use facial recognition. I'm actually using facial recognition on the photos of my kids too, because my program has facial recognition. But I will organize the old photos by person, because that is the most logical way people are going to want to find them, is by person. And then the dates will be there. Like I will try to include dates, but that's probably how I will set them up, is, here's but with the beauty of being in a program that has, where you're not having to set, I'm not going to create a whole bunch of folders on my computer and put the same photos in them. I'm going to use a program where I can, create a tag or an album that refers back to. So if I have an album for Clarence Hodgson, he'll also be in some of the photos of the farm years and the other things. But it's just a matter of how do you want to find them after. And I do agree with Anna, like if you have information available, by all means you want to record that. Like you want to keep track. That's part of what we're talking about in preserve. Like we're focusing a lot on family history, and part of preserving that family history is the stories behind the photos. Right. And that can be put in you can do that in Windows in a description field.
Right. So I want to,
Go ahead, Barb.
I'm worried about time, so forgive me.
Yes,
Go ahead.
I'll be
Let me
quiet.
finish your thought, though.
I can't remember what it was now. Sorry, I think I was. Yeah, I don't, it's gone.
Perhaps the key to this is we're not done. It keeps going.
We got lots
And
to follow, so and we're
right,
getting
so
around and a two, but it's for as a short answer, it warrants a lot of discussion and something to think about what makes sense to you.
right. And
I'll
it's
wrap it up that way.
trying to find ways to capture that physical world, the ephemeral stories, and bring them into a digital form that can be archived, preserved, and passed on as they matter for context. What I ate for dinner may not matter, but it might matter if it was my first meal as a vegetarian or as a meat eater or as, grandmother's whatever. Those are the things that make it a story that make it really matter. So I reference that blog post of the 5 elements because I'm going to be using that kind of very, very high level structure for which digitizing is one of the elements for organizing not only the programming that we do as regular events, but also for a new community. So I'm trying to slip in a little time here to talk about this. So as part of this community, we've found wonderful conversations happen like this in live sessions, but it's very difficult to continue afterwards without noisy email threads or something like that. So I've taken advantage of a new platform. Thank you, Anne. To build out a new platform called Podia that I can integrate into my cheap ass post Ponga world with links where we can have topic-based conversations and a sharing of resources. So, for example, after this recording, I'm going to take the recording from today's session and pop it into the forum. I'll give you all invitations to get there. You need to add a password because it's entirely private. And then from within that, we can continue these conversations specific to these kinds of topics. I have 5 for those 5 topical areas. And then I also have things general for things you want to come up and bring along, or events and event archives and things like that. But I will invite all of you to come on in there. There's even a little chat. And guess who's behind the chat? Hello. So we can, see how that goes. It's a third-party product that I'm bringing in. And it's all free. There's no money exchange because I don't even have a mechanism to do that. And we're just going to see how this all works because I just know there's something important here, and I know all of you are keeping me, thank you, keeping me honest and frankly motivated on my own stuff, and I'm passionate on the stories. So with many, many thanks again to Kathy and the warmth and enthusiasm she's shared with me in this whole process, and frankly, all of you whom I have gotten to know and have been just delighted by your encouragement and strength. We're going to get through all of this and keep these things going. And if you can't make it, that's okay. We'll have recordings and we'll see you on the in the forum. How's that? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Take care now.
Sounds awesome. Thank you. Good to see you. Good to see everyone. Bye.
Gotcha.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Barbara.
Bye-bye
Thanks.
now.
What do we do now? Not sure.
There we go.